World War II erupted just 1 year after a diplomatic agreement. How did the promise of peace lead to such an unimaginable tragedy? This war claimed over 80 million lives worldwide in 6 years. Yet, the seeds of this global catastrophe were sown in the decisions made in a conference room. In fact, this historical failure contained structural causes that echo even today. What was the true cost of an appeasement policy that sought peace above all else? Why were hopes for peace betrayed? Who misjudged what? And what enduring lessons does this failure offer modern society? Let us delve into the full story of the Munich Agreement, the diplomatic blunder that ignited the deadliest conflict in human history. This episode will also explore its profound impact on the subsequent international order. The horrors of World War I left an indelible scar on Europe. Over 15 million dead and vast swaths of land laid to ruin. Never again repeat that mistake. This became the driving force for the international community in the post-war era. In the 1920s, efforts towards cooperative diplomacy, such as the establishment of the League of Nations and the Locarno Treaties, bore fruit, ushering in a period of temporary peace and prosperity. Leaders across nations believed that conflicts could be resolved through dialogue and diplomacy, a policy strongly supported by their populations. In Britain, particularly, Stanley Baldwin and his successor, Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain, made pacifism the cornerstone of national foreign policy. France, too, sought to avoid depleting its national strength, shifting from a hardline stance against Germany to one of cooperation. No one desired war. However, in 1933, Adolf Hitler's Nazi Party seized power in Germany. A dark cloud began to gather over these hopes for peace. Hitler declared the annulment of the Treaty of Versailles and began rearmament, presenting aggressive demands to neighboring countries. In response, Britain and France initially chose a policy of appeasement, maintaining peace through concessions, in an effort to avert war. In 1936, Germany remilitarized the Rhineland. Despite violating the Treaty of Versailles, Britain and France avoided military intervention. In March 1938, Germany annexed Austria. Again, the international community acquiesced, and Hitler's ambitions only grew. Prime Minister Chamberlain engaged in repeated direct negotiations with Hitler, genuinely believing that concessions would lead to peace. The public also supported this approach. For many, the memory of the previous war was still too vivid. There was a pervasive sentiment that some concessions were acceptable, even necessary, for the sake of peace. Then, in September 1938, Hitler's next target became the Sudetenland region of Czechoslovakia. With a significant German-speaking population there, Hitler demanded its annexation under the pretext of protecting them. Czechoslovakia desperately sought aid from Britain and France. This was a critical juncture that would decide the fate of Europe. Britain and France were forced to make the ultimate choice. On September 29, 1938, the leaders of Britain, France, Germany, and Italy converged in Munich. Neville Chamberlain, Édouard Daladier, Adolf Hitler, and Benito Mussolini. Czechoslovakia's representatives were not invited, left to await the outcome outside the conference hall. It was, truly, a meeting held without the affected party. Hitler demanded the immediate cession of the Sudetenland. Chamberlain, for the sake of peace, resolved to make further concessions. France followed Britain's policy of appeasement. Offers of military aid from the Soviet Union were ignored, leaving Czechoslovakia isolated and helpless. Thus, the Sudetenland region of Czechoslovakia was decreed to be ceded to Germany. Britain and France seemed to have successfully averted war. Returning home, Chamberlain received a jubilant welcome and declared, "Peace for our time." The world breathed a collective sigh of relief. However, a trap lay open here, unseen by all. This peace was nothing more than an illusion. Why did Britain and France fail to discern Hitler's true intentions? The main causes were the trauma of World War I and an excessive yearning for peace. Leaders, trapped in groupthink, shared an optimistic scenario that Hitler would make no further demands. The sunk cost of past appeasement policies encouraged further concessions, systematically eliminating more resolute options. Furthermore, distrust of the Soviet Union clouded judgment. Britain and France, fearing the spread of communism, chose not to ally with the Soviets. Chamberlain himself, clinging to his convictions and a sense of mission for peace, largely ignored critical opinions. The warnings from a few, including Winston Churchill, were criticized by public opinion as warmongering and largely disregarded. Appeasement inadvertently conveyed a false message to Hitler that aggressive demands would always be met with concessions. Just 6 months after the conference, Hitler broke his promise, annexing the remainder of Czechoslovakia and establishing a puppet regime. It was then that Britain and France finally recognized the failure of appeasement. Hitler's ambitions had never been limited to the Sudetenland. Dialogue could no longer stop him. The next target was Poland. Britain and France issued military guarantees to Poland. But it was too late. In August 1939, the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact was signed, neutralizing Germany's threat from the east. Then, on September 1, 1939, German forces invaded Poland. The curtain rose on World War II. The guarantee of peace at the Munich Agreement crumbled barely a year later, plunging the world into its deadliest war. The failure of the Munich Agreement clearly demonstrated the perilous limits of concession to malevolent powers. The desire for peace is noble, but it must not lead to escapism or a misreading of an adversary's true intentions. In modern diplomacy and corporate strategy, a calm assessment of long-term risks is essential before rushing into short-term gains or fleeting relief. Furthermore, strong leadership, objective information analysis, and the courage to make difficult decisions are often required. The Munich Agreement taught us that peace is not merely wished into existence. It sometimes demands resolute action and sacrifice. Why were hopes for peace betrayed? Because leaders were captivated by immediate peace, misjudging the expansion of malevolence. Who misjudged what? It was the British and French leaders, overly committed to pacifism, and an international community that too readily believed Hitler's words. And the lesson for modern society is the critical importance of a resolute stance and collective deterrence against malevolent forces. The quality of decision-making differs between those who understand this failure and those who do not. History is constantly issuing warnings to us. If you found this video informative, please subscribe and give it a like. We explore a new history of failure every day.
この失敗は歴史のほんの1ページ。世界にはまだ語られていない失敗が数多くあります。失敗の歴史をチャンネル登録して次の物語もぜひご覧ください。